One of the coolest shows on the air finds you, Cobra Kai.
It was like, it's what? A TV show based on Karate Kid? And, right away I was like, ding, 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 ding. I was a karate, we were Karate Kid babies.
Yeah, I remember the Tigre.
I found myself surrounded by professional dancers, guys and girls, in tights and, leaving nothing to the imagination. It was like, whoa, okay, this is a lot. Pull it down, and I start doing this with the jab. I mean, it was like the young love couple on the show, and
I've seen the soap opera magazine covers with your face on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you were saying about making choices and how you react, I will sit there staring at my kids saying, why did you wake up and choose violence?
Welcome to 90who10. We have an amazing guest today. Dan always has the best people. Writer, actor, producer, and the alumni, Matt Borlenghi, who you might recognize from a couple shows, especially if you were a soap opera watcher. How are you?
I am alive and kicking, and these days in this freaky, scary world, alive and kicking is a check mark in the W column. It's a win.
You're in Atlanta, though. You're not in Los Angeles anymore. How long have you been out there?
We moved in October of 2017, and I was over LA, and I think LA may have been over me at the time.
But you're an LA native. You grew up in LA, right?
I did. I grew up in LA with stints in New York, and I mean, listen, we know each other from high school.
Yeah.
What year did you guys go? Were you guys in high school at the same time?
Matt's a little older than me. I didn't know you in high school, even though we know all the same people. But Matt and I, Matt is a Mountain Gate rat like your dad. I don't know if you knew her dad, Warren Entner. Did you know Warren at Mountain Gate?
Not unless he hustled me for money.
No. But so Matt and I used to play golf pretty much every Friday together. And
on my dad's circuit. So I'm sure you ran into him once or twice. Oh, that's so funny. So you're a golfer as well.
I am
a good golfer, a really good golfer.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But I mean, back then, when we were playing, my lowest, I got my handicap down to a 2.3 index. So that translated to a 3.
Yeah, but I think you're playing to a 5. That's why you're always taking money.
I was playing to a 7. Listen, you know what, Dan? You know which finger I'm hiding. One round took me down to a 2.3 index, and I should have melted the clubs and made myself a trophy out of them and never played again, because I shot a 65 at Encino the day after July 5th, 2010. Not that I'm keeping track.
But were you, when you were at Beverly, were you involved in the drama department there?
I was with John Engel was the master of ceremonies there. I
mean, when he ran the drama department, John Engel, people would know him from General Hospital afterwards. But it was the place, and it was, Beverly's drama department, could be compared to any, professional acting school. It really, and it a lot of big names came out of there. I mean, you probably just before you was like David Schwimmer, Jonathan Silverman, Nicolas Cage, and they were all in the drama department. I mean, Nick Cage was in Oklahoma. I remember because my sister was the stage manager.
Really?
Yeah.
Remember Jamie Lunar?
Of course. Yeah.
So even she, I think, is your grade.
She was a couple of years ahead of me. She was on what was it? Just the 10 of Us was her show that she was on. But also like Jamison Newlander from the Lost Boys came out of there. Uh,
How do you remember all
Gabe
this, Dan?
Mocked, who's had a pretty good career on Suits.
Yeah,
I mean, the list just goes on and
pretty
on and
good
on.
career. Pretty
Yeah.
good
Yeah,
career.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Gabriel's killing it. In fact, my daughter, and now my sons also, but my daughter is a huge Suits fan.
Yeah.
And one time, she was having a tough time and whatnot, and she was watching Suits all the time. And I sent a message to Gabriel.
Yeah.
I just told him, look, we're both BHHS,
Yeah.
and we're both in this acting world silliness. And my daughter's such a huge fan of yours. And I mean, he took the time to record a selfie video and
He's
send it to me so I could give it to her. And
Oh, that's awesome.
those kind of things. And my buddy Paul Wesley, he was on the Vampire Diaries. Before Garland, my daughter's name is Garland. Before she discovered Suits, she was a crazy Vampire Diaries nut. And when she found out that, she was looking at wedding pictures of mine and Heather's, and she said, "Wait, is that Paul Wesley?" I said, "P double V, yeah." And Paulie ended up sending a video to her when I told him that she was nuts about him. So I mean, that's the really cool side of actors. And I don't understand the arrogant sons of bitches who are just like, yeah, you know what, I'm on TV, and when I poop I don't even have to spray because it doesn't smell like anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And
But just going back to Gabe for 1 second, I mean, he was
yeah,
always the nicest guy growing up. I
yeah.
mean, sweet, 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 sweet guy. Let's talk about you though. So you come out of Beverly, and what you got the bug. You're out there. You're hitting audition circuit, right? Is that what's going on?
I got the bug when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
And I'd be walking home from school thinking, the old Lana Turner thinking, having been discovered at Schwab's pharmacy or
Sure.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I had this crazy idea that I'd be walking along and right across the street, and a limo would stop, and this producer would be like, "Yo, kid, you got to be in pictures." Now, if a kid's walking and a limo pulls over and the window rolls down,
Run.
that kid better run home screaming. But
Were you from like an entertainment family, or like what was your family life like?
no. My dad was an architect, and my mom was a fashion designer. And for a real good stretch there, my dad was remodeling houses in Beverly Hills, and that gave us the opportunity to move to, the second street from the end of the east side of
Yep.
Beverly Hills.
I was closer to that world myself, so yeah.
Right next to Doheny Drive.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful area, but I mean it's not Bedford or Roxbury,
Yeah.
but they had friends in the business, and my godfather actually was Jerry Vale, who famous singer, always in the Marty Scorsese movies like Goodfellas. Whenever you see like an older guy singing in the background or on a stage, he always put Jerry in his movies. And Jerry, I always had a problem with the idea of nepotism when I was younger. I had a lot to prove. I wanted to do everything myself. So, when Jerry would say, you ought to let me talk to, Martin or my other friends, I'd be, no, thank you. I'll go to a Dodger game with you and have a hot dog, but I can't, I don't, because that's how brilliant I was. I thought I was being, standing on the right way to do things. Turns out I was really just a dumbass. I mean,
I totally hear that. I was similar. But there's something to be said about doing it on your own. However, you could have had a much easier shortcut, which is
yeah, I wouldn't have minded skipping out on the jobs like degreasing car engines and all that
totally,
till I got a
totally.
shot. But what I say is, the sum of my experiences is who I am.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So Jerry didn't send his friend in a limo to discover you on Wilshire Boulevard, but when you started like really taking acting seriously and like honing your craft, how old were you?
Probably in the theater department at Beverly.
And that was kind of like
Yeah,
decision to do it as a career, because
because
it's not an easy career.
I connected strongly with John Engel. He was just a sweet and, just a caring guy who took it so seriously and was so supportive. And, was the first guy to say, it doesn't matter if you screw up. That's part of it. Just don't worry about that stuff. And, I have lamented in the past the fact that I avoided any of the high school stage productions. Like, I mean, Dan, I had no idea Nick Cage did Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I avoided even the idea of auditioning for any of those productions because, again, my clever brain, the Brady Bunch ruined that idea for me because I mean, Brady Bunch was huge at the time, and watching them do their like school productions, I was like, I will never. That is the corniest, worst thing I've ever seen. I never wanted to do that in high school because I was poisoned myself with that thinking of Brady Bunch, and
Yep.
how again the genius thinking and the what ifs with all the influential industry types that were probably watching their kids or their friends' kids or their niece or nephew in those productions. Hello.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of
Maybe.
people who got an audition or an agent or this or that from, I mean, a bunch of them. You had a really long run on All My Children. Let's talk about that. What was that process like? How long after high school? Let's talk about that.
Okay, so after high school, I got into other classes and everything, and then started, I sent out my headshots and everything to like 100 agents, and maybe 3 responded and wanted to meet. And I met with
That's
one.
actually a really good percentage. I just want to let everybody out there know. Like it is. It
These
seems like it's
days,
not, but
especially,
it
but
is.
back then, I mean, that's what you did. You just looked up, like in Backstage magazine or whatever. You just looked up addresses and you just mailed them out. But the funny thing was that I never wanted to go on any auditions until I felt like I knew what was going on and what I would need to be ready for. Aside from just the acting part of it, I wanted to feel like, and I tend to immerse myself in anything I take on or am going to dedicate a lot of time to. And I said, I'm going to go do extra work, background work. And I did that for 2 years so that I would know exactly what everything on a set was and who the people were and what their jobs were and how everything fit together. And, it turns out, I remember one time, a C-stand is, a 3-pronged or 3-legged, stand that holds lights or whatever they need it to hold. And once I got into, once I allowed myself to audition and, I booked my first audition, which was weird, just a little
Never happened.
non-union thing that, I don't say the name of very much, but the frickin' thing still shows up on IMDb. But, you know, I remember it was like, you know, someone said, hey, you know, will you hand me that C-stand? And I was standing right next to it. I was like, oh, here you go. Hey, no, you don't touch the equipment, you know? So
Yeah.
I got the
Yeah.
little wrist slap from that. And then I came to understand, okay, that's their department, and I'm in the Jaffa department. So I'll just be the Jaffa.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh,
I'm
that's
sure you
funny.
guys know what a Jaffa is.
No, I don't.
A Jaffa, and I'll clean it up because I don't know if this is R-rated or not.
Whatever, you can
It's
say
not
whatever.
you. I say the C word, so go ahead.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
keyword
It's
is on the
sometimes
table.
it comes out once in a while.
Right on. Okay.
Got a
So
British
feel free to
background, that's
drop an
why.
F-bomb here and there.
Okay. Well, Jaffa is just another fucking actor.
That's yes. Okay.
So my first legitimate job that got me my SAG card was a Le Tigre commercial.
Oh yeah, I remember the Tigre.
Yeah, Le Tigre.
Oh, that's amazing.
They tried to, you know, they wanted to take over the
Lacoste,
Izod.
right?
Were they like the
Izod.
did they have the like the Hold That Tiger? Was
Yes.
that them? Yeah.
Yeah. Hold
Yeah.
that tiger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that was my first union job.
Do you remember that, Jeff? No? Do you remember that?
I kind of do.
So like the hot guy wearing the Le Tigre would walk by and the girls would be like, hold that tiger. Yeah, Matt was probably the hot guy.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
amazing.
actually, want to know how ridiculous my thing was? When I went in, I found myself surrounded by professional dancers, like guys and girls in tights and, you know, leaving nothing to the imagination. It was like, whoa, okay, this is a lot. But they're doing these stretches in the hallway with their legs up here. And I'm like, what am I doing here? And I went into the room with two other guys. And right off the bat, when they told us, okay, so we're going to cue music and, you know, you're just going to start dancing, da, 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 da. And I said, okay, just hold on. Look at these guys. I'm not a dancer.
Yeah.
I don't even know why I'm here. And they said, don't worry about that. You just do your thing. Just have fun. And so I said, okay, fuck it. And I did this ridiculous thing. I started like doing the twist and like shimming side to side. And I was wearing a sweatshirt or a jacket or something. And as I'm doing like the twist and shimmy, I spin around, and with that thing I'm wearing, can you see my butt? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I pull it down and I start doing this with the jacket. And then I come back into completing the twist. And I hear them laughing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm an asshole. That's me. After, you know, we walk out, I'm like, thanks, guys. That was fun. The next day they call and or my agent called me and said, so what did you do at that audition? I said, I didn't give a flying F because, I mean, I was surrounded by pro dancers. Why'd you send me on that? He goes, look, whatever you did, they just called asking about your union status. And I told them that you're not union yet. And they said, okay, well, we're going to Taft-Hartley him and get him his SAG card because there is no one out there who could have done what he did, and we need him.
That's great. That's great.
For wiping my butt side to side with a jacket.
I mean, it's so funny.
When we filmed it, that's what they wanted me to do. So they had me start like this and then turn around and do it, and that's in the commercial.
I love it.
You did it naturally. They didn't have to ask you, you know.
Yeah,
but it's so funny, those commercial auditions, the things that you get asked to do sometimes that are, I mean, for anyone that hasn't been on an audition, I actually really respected what you just said about working background for a couple years, because I went sorry, I'm going to tangent for a second. I
Yeah,
do
go
this
for it.
sometimes. Yeah, I was in the drama department, but I did a lot of like the one act plays, and we did
Yeah.
some pretty we did Grapes of Wrath,
Yeah.
which is not entirely an awesome play, and it's really slow. And there was a jalopy on stage that would break literally. They'd have to put it up on this like wood chassis that would itself break down all the time. It was a mess. Anyway, I digress, but I respected what you said because I remember auditioning when I was at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I was not ready to audition. Not because I didn't understand like a set, because I was PAing, so I got that part. It was that I didn't, such an uncomfortable thing when you don't necessarily, when you're not used to it. So like there is a reason people do those on camera classes, because you walk into a room with like 4 people staring at you. They ask you to do something like arbitrary, like, oh, can you just dance, just get into it, and you're like, I don't know if they want me to dance, like I don't give a fuck. I don't know if they want me to dance like I mean it. So you kind of just have to do your thing and pray that you get it. So
Do you know John Homa, Matt? He's an acting coach.
He was an acting teacher.
He's an acting teacher. He's Max Homa's dad. But John, says, look, the audition is your job. The work is the reward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but you also realize that when you are getting your start in auditioning, if you're not ready to audition, that's your like debutante ball. Like if you come out and other casting directors start talking about this kid that they saw that's like great but not ready, that's kind of what you're marked as too. So I feel like there's something to be said for when you are in an acting class and like, don't audition, you're not ready. I see that now.
But
Like, I'm
from
like,
being
oh.
on the other side of it, and Matt, has moved on and done producing and directing, so he can probably agree with this. When the actor walks into the room, the people in the room so badly want that actor to be the right guy, do the right thing. They've seen so many people that aren't the right guy, who haven't done the right thing. They're desperately hoping that the next person that walks in is the guy who's going to be right. And what Matt did is what so many people want. Sometimes they don't even know what they're looking for. And when you as an actor can bring something to the table that they haven't seen, that you've actually thought of on your own, whether it comes to you spontaneously or something that you've premeditated, that's where the gold is.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a simple example of that, because really every role that I've ever gotten, it's because I've gone against the grain and not the way it was written, not the vibe that it was written, which goes back to like all my children. Dan, you were asking how that came about. I did a guest spot of Hunter. Remember Hunter?
Of course, Fred Dryer. Yeah, he was a big football star too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jessica, he was a football player, and they made him a cop on TV.
Yeah.
I remember it, but it was a little.
Yeah.
And he was a total, tough guy cop. One day, I'm hanging out with my then best friend, who went on to world stardom on the show Friends, and it wasn't Schwimmer. We're hanging out. We're at the time we're smoking bong hits and riding motorcycles, and I checked my voicemail, my answering machine at home when those existed, and my agent says that there's a last minute straight to producers audition for Hunter. So I'm like, oh, I'm stoned, but I'm going, and got on the motorcycles and rode up to Hollywood. And, I get the material when I get there. I was like, okay. All right. So I'm not going to be a wuss in this scene. I'm just going to, say F it and see if I can push his buttons. And, I'm being like interrogated. It's written as this nervous guy, and doesn't know why he's there. And instead I just leaned back in the chair and kicked my feet up on the table in front of me, and had the attitude of, I don't care who you are. And boom, I ended up booking that. And I did it, on set too. And it infuriated Fred so much that he just swiped my feet off the table, and so what did I do? I put them back on, and that made him even more angry. And the scene played
He
really
froze up.
well. I went against the writing on that. Lo and behold, the night that it aired, all my children had been trying to cast my role, well, recast it actually, because they started with Kelly Ripa and this other actor who didn't really, it wasn't working out. So they'd been trying for a few months to recast the role. And they'd done like 30 screen tests. Now, back then, the screen tests were really a big deal. I mean, they were flying people to New York. They're keeping the crew after hours, everything. So they had spent, I mean, like hundreds of thousands of dollars already trying to recast the role. And Hunter airs, and the next morning my phone rang, and it was my agent saying, all my children called and want to meet you like right away. I said, the soap opera that my mom watches? Because literally growing up, I would want to watch TV in the TV room, and my mom would come in and say, Matthew, get out. It's time for my soap operas. Very 50s Italian, heavy Italian accent. So, all my children, Matteo, out. So I went and I met them, and they said, okay, and again, going completely against the grain with the writing. He was supposed to be kind of, written in my mind, almost, kind of a lapdog for Kelly Ripa's character, and, supposed to be, oh, but Haley this and Haley that. And the scene was that I come walking up to the door, and I'm bound, just pounding on the door, yelling, Haley, Haley, open the door. I can hear the music, Haley, and blah, 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 because she skipped school. I figured, that's my girlfriend. I'm used to this shit. This happens all the time. This isn't a 5-alarm fire. So what do? I go up, and I used it for the screen test. I went up and leaned against the door and started slowly knocking on it with my head, like, this is just another fucking day of her doing this. Haley, I know you're in there. I can hear the music. And that's the way I approach the whole scene. I'm used to it. This is, because, I mean, that's what acting is supposed to be. It's supposed to just be life on camera, right? And too many people forget that. I mean, when I see exclamation points after sentences, I know that 99 out of 100 actors are showing how well they can yell.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the fuck? Okay. Isn't it the same message if you look at someone and just be like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
It's choices.
Same thing without showing how loud you can yell. And that's, I've been fortunate that, choosing my path that way, and teaching when I was teaching kids too, and adults acting also, or, I don't like to call it teaching, because who am I to teach anything, but coaching people and, helping them with, finding things in an audition material, just to not always be so caught up in how it's written. It's more about how are you going to play what's written and make yourself more human, and make, the best thing you can ever see when, I loved when it was all in-person auditions and everything. The most satisfying thing I ever saw in the room was when people would lean forward to watch instead of, okay, seen this 50 times already. lean forward, then I knew I had them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, and what's amazing too is when an actor can bring multiple choices to the table, when they can do it 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different ways, and one of those isn't yelling, but just different inflections or emotions that they're feeling. That's where there's some magic. And then the other thing too is where really the magic happens is when they are actually truly playing off the other actor, when they may have had their idea of the way they were going to say it, but because of what the prompt before the actor has given them, it changes their response. That's where true acting gold is.
Rule number 1:
Listening.
Listen.
Yeah.
Listen. Yeah. Because I mean, really, and you've heard this a million times, but acting is more reacting than acting.
Yeah. Yes. That's it.
Right? Did either of you ever study the Meisner technique?
I read some of it.
So I just FYI, was not my thing. It wasn't for me, but I did understand that was one of the things that you did take out of it was there is a choice in how you react to everything. Sure. Yep. So just doing those exercises, you kind of gives you that you could answer this way, you could answer this way, and it was very telling. I didn't enjoy it as a practice all the time, I don't think I don't prescribe to or subscribe or whatever the saying is to any specific technique, because everyone gets their own thing out of it. Like there's a whole amazingness with method acting, but it's all listening. And it's something that I think as an adult, I now look back on and go, it's all psychology, right? You have choices. You have choices in how you can create a character. You have choices with what kind of person you are. And the best way that I can describe it now is as a parent. Do you know how many times I want to react with a giant explosive and you have to make that choice going, I'm not going to play this role today. I'm going to play this role. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So sure, it's simplified. And I also think that now that I've had life experience, I'd probably be a much better actor than I was at 20. You know what I mean? Because you have so many other things to pull from. That was my 2 cents.
It's true.
How old were you when you landed the role on All My Children?
On All My Children?
Yeah.
23.
23. And did you move to New York for that?
I was at the airport the day after the screen test and checked my answering machine and called them back because they left a message saying, you need to call us back immediately.
Yeah.
So I was at JFK and they said, we need you back in New York in 3 weeks.
Fantastic.
So they actually needed me earlier. They needed me to start taping in 3 weeks. So in 2 weeks, I was back and trying to find an apartment and trying to find a bed and at the time, I had to also discover We Deliver, which was Weed Deliver.
Oh my God!
And I mean, what a heady experience though, to be 23. You're cast on this show. You're moving to New York. I mean, what an exciting time.
It was.
I have a question.
A lot. It was a lot, and it was very exciting. It was very overwhelming to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And I'll come back in a second, Jessica. But also, what was overwhelming, could have been really overwhelming, was the fact that I recognized immediately I'm the new guy. And I'm on the younger side, and I don't want anyone. Once I understood how much workload was involved,
mm-hmm.
I didn't want anyone to ever be able to point at me and say, he's the one who screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
So I put myself on an average 2-hour-a-night sleep diet for the first year because I wanted to make sure that I was the prepared guy no matter what the next day on set.
And that's tough to do because listen, we've both been around a lot of young actors, and as soon as some success that they've been waiting for hits, it is heady, and there's a lot of doors that are open, and sometimes you forget to put first things first. So, I'm glad to hear that about you. What were you going to say, Jess? I want to go back to your question was.
No, I was curious because there's something interesting with soap operas. When you got the job, they probably gave you like, here's what you're making a week, and you have an episode. Your what is it
Guaranteed.
called? Your guarantee is 1.5 episodes, and I know this because I was nearly on Guiding Light, and I have never watched a soap opera in my whole entire life. It came down to me and another girl, and I did the whole screen test, and I was so much taller than the guy I was reading against because I'm 5'8", and I had my foot behind me, like doing this thing. And they said the only reason I didn't get the part was I looked too old, even though I was only 19, and the girl who got the part was 28. And I was like, all right. But I thought, oh, this is going to be amazing. No, you move to New York, they pay you $1,500 a week, a guarantee of 1.5 episodes. You're scraping by. You can't work on anything else while you're there, and you're literally constantly working. And so for me, I almost was like, oh yeah, that doesn't sound so fun. So I'm curious because it was amazing, and now you're thrown into this very well-known, soap opera with Kelly Ripa, who, as we know, has like legacy in that world because of getting married to Mark and all that stuff. How was it really? Were you living with like 5 people in a flat? Like, what was it like those early days? Because it's not as glamorous as just getting the job, right?
Well, no, I mean, listen, first of all, the money at the time when I think it was $12.50 per episode with a 1.5 episode guarantee per week, which, by the way, Dan, and everyone else, translates to, even if you don't do any shows that week, you're getting, $12.50 plus half of that
Right.
per week. I got thrown into this. I mean, it was like the young love couple on the show, and we became really, really popular. And I was
I've seen the
grateful
soap
for it.
opera magazine covers with your face on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I mean, there weren't many weeks where I wasn't taping 4 days or 5 days a week,
Yeah.
which was great. And no, Jessica, I wasn't living in a flat with 5 other people. When I got there, the first thing I found, there was so little time to like research anything about the city or whatever. I found a high-rise building 6 blocks from the studio and signed it and took it. And, I lived on the 33rd floor of a 54-story building in a studio apartment
Nice.
that was 550 square feet. And I was paying $1,375 a month. So who knows how much it is?
Good luck
I
finding that
mean,
now in New York.
yeah, no kidding.
$4,000 now for a
it's crazy.
studio.
But this is what year? Like 1375 equates to about $3,500, $4,000
Yeah,
now. Like that's a lot.
$1,991, $1,375. It was a lot. And listen, again, I was, before all my children, I was degreasing car motors. So
Yeah.
that episodic guarantee and everything was like the world to me. I think the first year I made 153,000 and change. Listen to me saying I think. I know. The first year I made
but those are $1991.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second year was 177,000.
Yeah.
So that was like all the money in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
To a young guy. And I, again, being my genius self, my contract, I had only signed on for 2 years, and my contract was almost at the end, and they hadn't approached me yet about, re-signing. They, kind of took for granted, knowing this guy's very popular on this show. He's making good money and he's not going anywhere. But, I was 25 now, and thinking, this is so serious all the time. it's so much I love you and so much, oh
Yeah.
no. And, I wanted to go back to LA, and I had my Harley with me in New York. I trucked it out so that I'd have that escape to go up to Westchester and stuff on weekends and just escape the craziness of the city. But all I wanted to do was go back to PCH and ride my Harley with my best friends. And again, Matt, I mean, we were best friends, we're blood brothers, and that's what we did. We rode our motorcycles, and I just wanted to go do sitcoms and laugh all day instead of all the heavy drama.
Yeah.
And when they realized that I was not planning on staying, I mean, they offered to make me a millionaire if I would stay. And I said no. And I gave them extra time. I gave them a few extra months to find a new love interest for Kelly. And someone jumped in to kind of take over so they could write out the Brian Bodine character out of her life and write in the new Mateo, which is my real name, by the way.
Right. That's so
name.
funny.
So they named her new love interest Mateo, and that's where so I mean, they really, Mark and Kelly, owe their entire lives and their whole their entire empire to me for quitting the show, because they would have never gotten together. And
it's a sliding door moment. That's interesting. I love that.
They brought you back, right? They brought you back years later to kind of interrupt their romance, right?
Yeah. They wanted me to go back for a minimum of 6 weeks, and I was like, no, I can do 3, because I had just done a big pilot for Fox that was the replacement series for Married with Children. So it was a spin-off of Married with Children, and everyone
full circle.
like,
we can't go an episode without talking about Dave in some capacity.
Faustino.
Sure.
And so it was, I was caught up in this, everyone was hyping up this pilot of mine, Enemies, that was me and Nicole Eggert and 4 other. We were the anti-Friends show. And it was so timely and so relevant. And, Married was going off the air that following season, and we were going to take their place. And they brought in the schmuck network president from CBS, came in, was brought in by Monsieur Murdoch to class up the network. And they didn't take Enemies because it was crass. It was like Married with Children. And they thought a Pauly Shore, Dan, they thought a Pauly Shore show would be a little more user friendly than our show. And Paulie's great. By the way, I saw him here in Atlanta last year, and we hung out. Talk about a couple of guys who've had the highs and have had the very real, humbling, and I mean, we had a great time. I went and saw his show, and he was still so damn funny.
Yeah.
And the audience ate him up, and but anyway, so they went with this Pauly show, and it was off the air, I think, in 4 episodes, and my near miss, became just that, a near miss. But because of that pilot looming, and that whole pilot, presentation week coming up real soon, I said to all my children, I can come back for 3 weeks. I can give you 3 weeks, but I just did this pilot, and here I am, like, just blowing myself. Thinking, I got this pilot coming up. It's going to be a big series. I can't spend more than 3 weeks in New York. But they did bring me back, and Mark and Kelly and we had a great time working together. And they brought me back as all of a sudden Brian was like this successful TV producer, and it was just so ridiculous. But ultimately Brian could not win Haley back over, and the Haley and Mateo storyline became as big as it did, and now they are an empire. I mean,
Yeah.
what
Jeez
don't they-
Louise.
It's
what
unbelievable.
Yeah.
don't they do?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Amazing.
But I mean, you did even after that though. Then you did a lot of sitcom work. You had what Police Academy, the series, which I didn't even know was a thing. Sorry about that. But you did a nice, what was it, a year run on there or something like that?
Ooh, yeah, we did a full year of that,
Yeah.
and I was living in Vancouver, but that came after other series. That came after Pigsty, which was supposed to be a big NBC show, but James Cameron, or not, Jimmy Burrows
Yeah.
was directing it, and the creators were producers from Cheers. And it was, it was a really funny show, and it still has legs. I found it on YouTube of all places not too long ago, and
Wow.
I watched all 13 episodes of Pigsty and realized this was a damn funny show.
It's amazing how many shows are like that they just didn't, hit their stride or find the audience. But when you come back to them, I mean, the one with the Judd
Freaks and
Apatow,
Geeks.
yeah, that was
That's
great.
my
That's like the
my friend
pinnacle.
Gabe. My
Yeah,
friend Gabe will come on the show soon, hopefully,
yeah,
because he
yeah.
was one of the creators of that. And
That was a
it's that
great
show
Great
and
show.
My So-Called Life.
Yeah,
Short-lived, but like perfected,
But
yeah.
So I'll
you
tell
had a
you
good
what,
run
though.
on Foxworthy too, which was a pretty big show.
Yep. I mean, so Pigsty was supposed to be NBC, but Jimmy Burrows ankled when the creators wouldn't take a couple of his notes. Like, he didn't like one of the characters because it was 5 guys and 1 girl, and he didn't like one of the guys, and they wouldn't take the note. They were like, "Hey, Jimmy, we've worked together on Cheers. You know the way we are. This is our show." So he hightailed it out and went and decided to attach himself to a pilot called Friends Like Us.
Hmm.
And it was 3 guys and 3 girls, and they retitled it Friends, and NBC picked up Friends and shuttered Pigsty, and then UPN picked up Pigsty as their debut, season.
Yeah.
On air, and it went 13 episodes, Pigsty, but they didn't renew it. And Richard Jenny had Platypus Man, and Richard Grieco had Booker, and we were
Right.
kind of sandwiched in between the 2 of those shows, and they spent all their time, pumping up Booker because Richard Grieco was like a big thing back then.
Huge.
Talk about an actor who got caught up in his own hype.
Sure.
And his own arrogance. I mean, I'll never forget a quote I read of his. I was like, this motherfucker, he did not actually say this in an interview, but he was like, he said something about, lots of actors have, their 15 minutes and whatever, but, I think I'm good for at least 7 years because no one has what I have, or something like that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? What? And listen, between Marker and Booker and whatever the hell else they had. Marker was the show on UPN, not Booker. But I haven't seen him in a long time, and I'm still kicking.
Yeah.
So, humble. Just do your
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
Do your job. Be grateful that you have the job, because there are so many thousands and thousands of people out there who dream of having the job that I have, even though I'm not working as steadily as I used to, and as an actor, I pop up here and there, but they're in pretty good projects that I pop
You've
up.
been able to create a living doing what you love, and that's something quasi. So let's talk about some of your other projects, because we know you're an actor, but you also produce.
Yeah, I am producer on 2 TV pilots currently that have been shot already, and I'm the creator of a script of a drama pilot that I'm trying to get money together to shoot that. But not, and what else? Oh, I created an executive produced. I created a docu-series style, a non-scripted show, a special for A&E networks, a few years back, several years back, about the work of the Clark County's coroner office, which
Oh,
is Las Vegas.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, and so when I originally thought of it, it was, you know, I had it titled DOA, and it was going to be about the Las Vegas coroner's office, and you know what led up to this person being on the table. And I was involved and participated in 52 autopsies,
Oh,
gloved up, gowned up,
Wow.
hair covering, face shield.
you don't have an aversion to that at all?
It wasn't pleasant. It was kind of heartbreaking most of the time, because, you know, I, as part of my process also, I mean, I would spend time with these folks that would pass and just try to figure it out. And, you know, like, especially the suicide cases, you know, one of them I'll never forget, when we were shooting at that time, we were because listen, being involved in all those autopsies, it was also because I was spending so many weekends. I would drive up to Vegas and build the trust with the coroner and the staff and let them know, look, I'm not here to exploit anything. I'm here to tell your stories and potentially figure out the stories of the people that are coming across your desks and your
Yeah.
tables. And so being involved in that many autopsies and actually being in, you know, removing organs, it was part of showing, hey, I'm a serious person here. You know, I'm not just, because a lot of them recognized me from TV, you know. So
Right. Yeah.
I had to, you know, make sure they understood this isn't about me. This is about you, and it's about the person here, the deceased. And so I was, you know, very in the thick of it. And then, you know, during the time that we were, you know, I had gotten approval and gotten, you know, the budget put together and the production companies lined up. And we were away from there, you know, like we had already, you know, we had a crew away filming something. And then I got a call saying, we just got a call about a jumper from Hanson Dam. And that sounded fascinating to me. So I raced over, you know, and by the time I got over, because there actually is a lot of traffic in Vegas too, he had been brought in, and I asked, where is he? And he was on a gurney in a room, little dark room with a window. So the only light in the room was coming from the hallway. And I went in and I just stood in silence with him. And as the silence became greater and greater, I was able to just listen to the droplets of water coming off his body onto the floor, and just sitting with that, trying to figure out, you know, why would you throw yourself off the Hanson Dam? What? And I mean, he, as they did the x-rays, he was so broken physically.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and I saw the x-rays before, you know, before I went in there, and I saw the distorted, you know, body parts and everything. And I was sitting there thinking, you know, he's so broken on the outside now. How broken was he on the inside? And, you know, that was one, like that and a time that a couple toddlers were brought in, and
Oh, no. Yeah. Couldn't.
and they had, you know, all the police presence and everything in the autopsy suites with us. Those were, you know, and another guy who leaned into his shotgun.
Oh, some pretty grisly stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? That is really the project of mine that to date I'm the most proud of. you know, because I created it. It was me sitting alone one day, just thinking, what leads up to death? You know, and then I was like, what's a catchy title? DOA. All right. And the network ended up renaming it Postmortem in Vegas, which was a little bit more, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but it came together really well. And the coroner at the time, he's since retired, was such a fascinating guy, was such a heart, who took, he suffered. If they couldn't help solve the case, the whodunit part of it, he suffered with the families. And it was really a powerful experience that I'll take with me forever. If I can ever create something that resonates as heavily as that did again, then and I have high hopes for ATF, which is the show, the drama series I created, which is based on ATF cases.
What is ATF? Sorry.
Yeah, it's the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives.
Yeah.
More ATF agents have died in the line of duty than FBI, CIA, and DEA combined. They're the first on the scene at 9/11. Any crime they're involved in, or they have jurisdiction over any crime involving a handgun, which is most crimes. So any type of explosives. That's why they were at World Trade Center. And then, the FBI will usually sweep in and try to hog the credit for whatever they do. And then you see, glossy shows made about FBI and CSI and whatnot. But ATF is really, they're the baddest of the bad, and they deal with the toughest of the tough. And they're the ones that infiltrate biker gangs and, drug cartels. And they're the ones who live with knowing that if they are found out undercover, it's not just them getting whacked. It's families, it's their friends, it's their whole freaking family tree, and neighbors, and everyone that they may know, just to set an example.
Wow.
So, that's what that kind of traumatic, post-traumatic stress syndrome is what I utilize in my script, which is the only script that was ever actually approved by ATF agents, because you'd be surprised how many scripts have been pitched with, the stereotypical Agent Jack Black,
Right. The Law and Order template of,
But it's what self-respecting, agent who's putting his life on the line every day and dealing with this kind of stress wants to be portrayed as someone who's swatting an alarm clock, kicking the legs over the side of the bed, grabbing a half-empty bottle of Jack Daniels, taking 2 swigs to start the day. It's such bullshit. It's so bad.
When you say that, I think of the excuse me, I think of the John Hurt character from The Sopranos. Like that's what I see when you're talking about that,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And he did what a great show.
He was a great actor. But
so anyway, that's kind of where I'm at with production, is, trying to find cool things, because Lord knows, I mean, I don't have a budget. I don't, I'm a humble and honest, and I'll tell you the truth, whether you like hearing it or not. I mean, I've had a lot of success in my career as an actor, but I don't have the bank account of it.
Right.
But listen, you leave Hollywood, you move to Atlanta, and then one of the coolest shows on the air finds you, Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
And you have a little run on there, which is amazing, right?
Yeah. And there was, as far as I know, there were no plans of that being a recur. I mean, I was here less than a month. I was here like 3 weeks, and this idea, came across me, and it was like, it's a TV show based on Karate Kid. And, right away I was like, ding, 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 ding. I was a karate, we were Karate Kid babies. I believe
Yeah.
You know, Jessica, I think you're a little younger than all of us, right?
Little, just by a smidge
Yeah.
below you guys. Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, yeah, Karate Kid. It was like, what? The Karate Kid TV show? No, it's a reimagining, and they're flipping the roles of Johnny and
Yeah. Yeah.
Daniel.
Yeah.
And I was like, and what is this? I'm a pawn shop guy. And they said, yeah, you're a pawn shop owner in the mini market, you know, area, next to the dojo. And I was like, okay. And I read it and I was like, this is not the way I'm not seeing me in this role. So I went with, you know, my own take on things. And
But it's
next thing you know, I
amazing.
got the
That
job.
could have been like a one and done. And you know,
Yeah.
you come back for what, 6, 7, 8 episodes, something like that, right?
One episode per season.
Yeah.
Which they didn't need me in season 4 because Johnny didn't need my money for storyline purposes. He didn't need to come see me, but he really needed to come see me again season 5. And then I made it to the first and final episodes of season 6.
But in the first episode that he comes into the pawn shop, it was like one of the greatest scenes when he doesn't know like even what he's got. He doesn't know like what a Walkman is, or
Right.
You know, yeah, it's
The
amazing.
Nintendo is
Yeah,
Atari.
Yeah, it's an Atari.
And it's worth $2.
Which was so, you know, and the gold coins, gold plated. You know, yeah, if you happen to have 60,000 of these laying around somewhere, we can work it out.
Yeah.
We had so much fun doing that. And, you know, a testament to how gracious, you know, the creators of that show are. When I found out that I was coming back for season 2, and I was like, holy crap, you know, and I'm sitting there waiting to shoot my stuff, and they're at Video Village with all the monitors, and I don't bother anyone. I'm just sitting there in, you know, my little director's chair, whatever. And when they're done, they see me and they come over and they're like, "Thank you, we're so happy you came back." I was like, "No, thank you. Who are you kidding?" And they're like, "No, you don't understand. We've all been like the writing team and everything. We've all been cracking up in the writer's room for the last few months, wondering how you were going to say your lines this time." And I was like, that was the greatest honor they could have ever paid me, you know, because that told me that, I mean, totally validated what I had done season 1. I mean, just that I marched to my own drum season 1, and it created season 2, and then
that
3.
first scene was hysterical. I mean, really good stuff, man.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I'm gonna miss playing that role.
Yeah, it's amazing how that show came about. I mean, that I guess there was a music video, Sweep the Leg from some band, and then he did both of them did a like a little reprise of the characters on How I Met Your Mother.
They're like adversarial personalities on How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah. But
and then amazing. You know, the creators saw those things and they were like, ding.
Yeah. And the show, I mean, was a hit.
And you know, it started on YouTube Premium.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
When they thought they were going to have an actual like channel. Yeah, and I remember that.
It was first called YouTube Red, and then they changed it because it was reminding people too much of a porn site that was called RedTube.
Yeah.
No,
I don't know why I know that.
Was.
Never mind.
We heard that, you know.
So what's happening now, Matt? What's going on now?
Right now, I am cautiously optimistic that another pilot I just did, because I've done 3 pilots in the last year and a half, and 2 of them I'm a producer on and acting in. But this other one that I just did beginning of January, I think it was, or end of December, that's almost done and ready to pitch. And the director of that, and by the way, the writer is Jeff Farley, is also buddies with Faustino. So the world stays like this.
Well
When you
connected.
think
Yes.
it's going to get like this, it just gets like this.
Yeah.
But Jeff Farley wrote this pilot, and the director Terry J. Vaughn, who's also an actress, and she sold the last show that she directed to Tyler Perry, and it's premiering on Netflix sometime this month, I think, or in May actually. But this pilot, I play. Remember the rapper Big Daddy Kane,
Of course.
BDK.
Yeah.
So he is making his first journey into TV world,
Okay.
and it's a funny show. And he plays this, this character who is no longer like rapper famous money, but still has money from it, and his whole like rebuild of his life. He wants to open a restaurant of like Italian and Southern fusion, if you can figure that out. And he's divorced, and he has two kind of estranged kids, and his best friend, who was always his cohort and kind of like wingman and number one group, his go-to guy when he was famous rapping and doing all the concerts and everything. So we were living the high life back then, but now it's like, what am I gonna help him with? So the relationship is still strong, but I have to make my own bucks, and I'm a garbage man. I ride the garbage truck all day. And when when I'm taking my breaks or whatever, like a poo break, it's making sure we stop at his house so I can use his toilet, so I don't have to go to the gas station.
Yeah, it's hysterical.
And if he's cooking, because he's always cooking, trying to figure out, and he's got a big opening of a restaurant coming, and he's experimenting. So I'm always, I stop in and I'm grabbing food, and did I flush or not before I grab the food?
I love it.
Oh my God.
I love it. I love it.
And it's a funny show, and they gave me a lot of leeway with, my dialogue. I got to, add stuff, but only if it was going to make sense and add to why these guys are still best friends.
Yeah.
When it's not, just riding the teat, sucking the teat high.
Yeah. I love it. Sounds exciting.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that
I'm
might air.
cautiously optimistic. We feel very good about that show because it's BDK.
Yeah. He's great. Yeah.
That's amazing.
He has a built-in audience, and I have a built-in audience between the soaps and Cobra Kai. I mean,
that's great. So if we see this, where would it maybe? You don't know yet? Do you know who might pick it up?
Because of her relationship already with Tyler Perry. I mean, she's going to be talking with Tyler Perry, and it could go so many different ways. Any whether it's Hulu or Netflix or
Amazon, like
or
Onyx
whatever,
or something.
There's so many options, especially when you're dealing with a show that has a built-in audience already.
Yeah,
it's a lot easier for a show to get some traction and get noticed by and the investment to be made in a show when there are people on it. It's a lot easier than it is if you're like, I got a really good idea and I got 14 unknowns,
right.
Yeah.
Well,
Man, sorry, go ahead, Jessica.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up this episode, but I wanted to kind of just check in with you now, because you also mentioned that you have two kids, so you're not only three kids. Jesus Christ, I have one and I can barely keep my head together. You guys are nuts, but good for you.
He's got 3 kids.
So 3 kids, adults, children in between.
19-year-old girl away at college, over on the West Coast, and 2 15-year-old twin boys who could not be less alike. They look nothing alike. They act nothing alike. They hate each other more than they love each other, I think. And they just, I'm hoping it's all about that. The reason that they can be such fucking assholes is because of the 15-year-old hormones.
Oh yeah.
You know, I love my kids are my everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, I do what I have to do to try to, you know, be a good dad and provide. I mean, shit, I was working an Amazon job not too long ago until I got injured. So you do what you have to do, and you know, that's part of it. But remember you, Jessica, what you were saying about making choices and how you react to things. I mean,
Daily.
I will sit there staring at my kids saying, why did you wake up and choose violence?
That is a wonderful note to leave on, and I totally hear you. I get it. Parenting and choices, man. It's the best acting class you never knew you needed. Right?
Yeah. It's parenting 101.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I can't
Matt,
thank you enough for doing this, Matt. Thank you so much.
I'm so happy to spend time with you guys, and you know, everyone look out for Daddy's Place, because that's the title of the show.
Awesome.
Amazing.
If and when that goes, and maybe daytime might be time to go back and, you know, play in the sandbox again.
I love it.
But, you know, I would
nothing's
love,
off limits.
Listen,
like
you got
excuse.
the gray beard. You're looking handsome. They could
great.
bring you back, Matt. They
Thank
can
you.
bring you back.
Hey, you know what? I'm sober and clear-headed for, you know, for a good bit of time now,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm grateful to be a dad and a husband still, and you know, be able to do what I do and be here
And a
with you guys.
sweet guy, Matt. You're somebody that I always have loved. You're a sweet, sweet man. I really appreciate you. Wrap it up, Jess. Let's hear it.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's been a pleasure to meet you. We got a little chance to talk about Atlanta before Dan joined us. But thank you. Please check out Matt on all of his profiles. Do you have any Instagram handles you want anyone to check you out on, or where they can find you?
Cobra Kai Pawn Guy.
Cobra Kai Pawn Guy. And what
TikTok
Daddy's
too.
Place.
And yep.
Yeah.
Place, hoping to come to a TV or streaming service near you soon. Until then, like, subscribe, tell your friends. Thank you guys for watching us. We always appreciate it. A big hi. I just want to give some love to Linda, who is the president of the Grassroots Fan Club, and she's not doing so great. So I just wanted to give her some extra love and say that we are thinking about you. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much. Peace out.
Thank you, guys.